What do you have in the mornings for cereal?
What?
Do you have cereal in the morning?
No.
Not ever?
Never.
Good morning, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. You're listening to the Two Mikes on the warm-up, coming to you live from the London Stadium ahead of this afternoon's West Ham-Everton game. We've got a packed show for you. We've got FA Cup stuff to talk about. We've got all kinds of Ian Poulter news for you as well. And we're talking, of course, Liverpool Crystal Palace with Sammy Lee. He knows a little bit about both clubs, of course. He'll also tell us about a project to get youngsters playing football. Plus, we'll have a one-minute moan, and we'll tell you all about the trouble we had getting here. It's not that it's that difficult, it's just that we were a bit thick about it. 08717 22 33 44. You're listening to the Two Mikes, live from West Ham on the warm-up. This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes, and I'm delighted to say it's time to say a very, very good morning to a very resplendent-looking, and he's outside the studio at the moment, Mike, a Porky Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry. What's it like out there?
A very good morning to you, Mike. It's magnificent. I tell you what, this is my first visit to the Olympic Stadium, the home of West Ham.
It's called the London Stadium now, by the way.
It used to be the Olympic Stadium. I was going to say, now rechristened, of course, the London Stadium for West Ham. And do you know what? If they landed a Martian on the centre circle, and that Martian looked up and looked around, the Martian would say, this ground belongs to a very substantial football club. Yeah. This is a magnificent structure.
Do you think you might say, isn't this the place where that guy Kenneth Branagh pretended to be Brunel at the opening ceremony of the Olympics in 2012?
Well, he may do, but I mean, that's by the by. The point is now, there's absolutely no problem with deciding who plays here. It's West Ham United, and you can tell because every seat and every bit of space,
you can tell by the great
ceiling,
big hammers that are made across the seats, and
absolutely.
also the great big words which spell out West Ham.
Yeah, absolutely right. That gives you a trick. And of course, the Sir Trevor Brooking stand is on my right.
Yes.
The rest of it's just resplendent. Honestly, if I was a fan coming here every week, I'd be very, very happy with the way my club have moved on to the next stage of their development.
I must admit, there have been an awful lot of comments made, a lot of complaints from various fans that have visited here, from some of the home fans as well. But it looks a magnificent place to watch a game of football to me.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's got a very wide sort of angle that you can see everything. There's nowhere that you can't see anything.
No.
People say, there's some restricted views. I can't see any restricted views. I mean, we're right in the middle of the place, and it looks fantastic.
All I can see is a great stadium. Now, Everton are coming here today. Everton are in the throes of trying to find themselves a new stadium, okay?
Yeah. And a new striker as well, possibly.
Well, we'll get to that later, and we're kind of halfway there. Now, the point is, that is a huge leap for any football club. To get out your old stadium, get into a new one, and then move on into, a new part of the development of the historic club that West Ham United and Everton are, is a big, big bridge to get over. But West Ham have got over it. And if I was a West Ham United fan, I'd be very, very happy to be coming here 18 or 20 times a season. Now, in the show today, of course, Mark, we've got lots to do, but we can't really go any further without mentioning Ugo Ehiogu.
Indeed.
It is the most terrible tragedy, and the football world really has opened up its heart to the terrible happening of Ugo Ehiogu collapsing and dying so suddenly at 44 years of age.
Well, it was a shocking enough story to know that he had been taken to hospital and having collapsed. And then, in a way, even more shocking because everyone thought perhaps we would be hearing some good news the next morning. And, in fact, it was the most awful news.
It was the most awful news. I spoke to Andy Townsend yesterday, a good colleague of ours and friend of mine. Yeah. And, of course, Andy is immersed in Midlands football. He was captain of Aston Villa. Right. And ironically, here we are at West Ham United, and the colours of West Ham United are exactly the same as the colours of Aston Villa, and so you say to yourself, you can imagine, the strip that Ugo Ehiogu played in for a lot of his career, and it has come as a terrible shock to that Midlands football community. And you look at all the tributes this morning, from people like Jasper Carrott and people who are immersed in that, and from everybody in football, and it's a terrible tragedy, which we'll get back to a bit later in the show.
Gareth Southgate's written a lovely piece, which has been put on the website of the FA. A gentle giant off the pitch, a colossus on it.
That's right.
Lots and lots of tributes, and as you say, we will get to those a little bit later on. Going back to Everton West Ham, coming up a little bit later on. It is a key time of the season, really, for Ronald Koeman and his consolidation of what he's done this season and how he takes it on for next season, and whether he can keep players like Ross Barkley and Romelu Lukaku.
Well, Romelu Lukaku is an interesting individual because although I never sort of pay much heed to these stats which say, oh, you know, this team hasn't won here for 20 years or something like that, because the team's different 20 years on. The amazing stat about Romelu Lukaku is every time he's played in the Premiership against West Ham United, 9 times in all, he's scored, whether he's on loan at West Brom, whether he's at Chelsea, whether he's at Everton. And so, the West Ham lads lining up in the tunnel today and looking across and thinking, oh dear,
he's back.
If ever we had a jinx on us, it's Lukaku. And of course, Lukaku is in terrific form.
He is.
Because Harry Kane had a couple of weeks off with an injury, Lukaku was able to streak ahead of the goal-scoring charts, and now he's well ahead.
And another man in that sort of region at the top of the goal-scoring charts, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, may be scoring, well, certainly won't be scoring any more goals this season.
Well, he might not be scoring any more goals this year.
At all.
Because they're saying he might not be coming back until early next year. But other than that, I've also seen speculation that at 35 years of age, when you get if it's a cruciate, if it's definitely a cruciate ligament injury in his knee, it might be very hard for any man of that age to come back and actually put himself at the highest level of football.
He's not
again.
just any old 34-year-old, though, is he? I mean, he's kind of Superman.
I agree. He is Superman. But the long layoff and then the age that he'll be when he comes back, you have to worry about it. Now, why are you going around telling people that the curse of Porky has hit a golfer, Mr. Ian Poulter, my friend? You think it's my fault?
Well, I think it is your fault, because
How can it be my fault?
Ian Poulter was at the top of his game. In fact, I think I'm right in saying that he was in the top 10 of golfers around the world. At one point, I think he was even up as high as about number 4 or 5. Right?
Hey! When he gave me a lesson, he was number 6.
There you go.
6 in the world.
Right. So he was number 6 in the world, and now ever since that lesson that he gave you, I don't know how many years ago it was, when you turned up in a very, very bizarre outfit. Some people have already tweeted the picture out.
Yes.
You're wearing these kind of, tartan shorts.
Yeah, but hang
Bumblebee tartan.
Hang on, they were his shorts. That was his clothing range, and he said, Porky, you want to come out on the golf
they look a lot
with
longer
me?
on you than they do on him. So they come down to about mid-calf.
Well, he's a bit taller than me,
He is a bit, yeah.
But,
he's got his arm around you. You've also got this very effeminate sort of Louis Vuitton mini golf bag.
Yeah, well, I carry my clubs around it.
Pathetic, right? But ever since then, not only has he drifted away from the top 10, he's drifted away from the top 100, he's drifted away from the Ryder Cup team, and he's now lost his touring card in America for the PGA Tour.
I know.
Because that's how bad he is.
I think it's honestly, I feel
shocking.
I feel sorry for him. He's a close friend of mine. I sent him a message and said, "Don't worry."
Did he answer?
Not yet, but he's got a lot on his mind. And when he was asked, by the way, by the interviewer, what positives have you taken out of the weekend?
He didn't have a lot, did he?
Well, he just had to think, and then I'm afraid there wasn't a lot to say.
No, quite.
But he'll be back because he's that sort of guy. And remember,
you say that, but I mean, once you drop out of the PGA Tour, he's then got to go and play in a lot of really horrible little competitions to get himself back up.
Yes.
And he may not fancy doing that.
No. Now, also, of course, it's the weekend of the Cup semi-finals.
It certainly is.
And there's going to be a lot of action there. And you have quite rightly said that puts the focus of the Premier League table on the bottom rather than the top.
It certainly does. And there's a lot of big action at the bottom. My treble, by the way, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, has got a 22-1 price tag on it this week.
Yeah, and what is it?
And guess what? I'm back in West Ham to beat Everton.
Oh, are you?
Because we're here at West Ham.
I see.
And I thought it's the least I could do to show a little bit of pride in the home side.
I mean, that is just typical grovelling. That's just typical grovelling. Because West Ham are very kindly hosting us today, and because we're here, and they put these magnificent facilities at our disposal.
By the way, you noticed, since you started talking, they put the lights on. Yeah, they must have thought they wanted to show some light on you, shed some light on you.
Well, you could say the Lord said, "Bring me light," and there was light, and it gives you that sort of feeling. This stadium, because I have to say, I'm bowled over by it. It's big. It's bold, it's very West Ham, and it is Olympian. I have to say that. It really is.
It is. It's fantastic. Yeah. Now, we've also got to talk a little bit about what we're up to tomorrow, which is a very exciting day. I want you to sort of shoot your bolt, as it were, today.
Well,
because you've got to keep something in reserve for tomorrow's game, which is a massive game up in Scotland, the Scottish Cup semi-final between Rangers and Celtic.
I know. It's absolutely fantastic. It's Celtic versus Rangers. It's at Hampden Park.
Yes.
And I'm delighted to be able to tell everybody we are going with Sir Roderick Stewart.
We are indeed.
The king of pop, as far as I'm concerned. And to get there, we are being invited to go on board his private jet to get up to Glasgow, and get back. And when I asked,
you're not going to be dressed like that, I hope, are you?
Of course. Listen, this is my working clothes. Tomorrow I will be socialising. But
splendid.
But it was great when I was asking the people who arrange these things about the itinerary. The itinerary going is very clear. What time to get to where we're going, and I said, what about coming back?
Yeah.
And they say, well, that really depends on the result, doesn't it? Sir Rod does like mixing with people if Celtic get a good result.
Yes, I've already had a couple of people from the north area of Glasgow telling us about some of the pubs that Rod likes to visit when he's up there between the airport and Hampden. So apparently he's well known for popping in from time to time. So we may have to get prepared for that as well.
Well, I hope he doesn't expect to drag me into public houses in Scotland on a Sunday.
Well, there's a lot of people up there.
I could be tempted.
There's a lot of people up there with their oranges at the ready for chucking at you, as per the last time you went up there and Alan Brazil told everyone you were a Rangers fan.
Not only told them as a Rangers fan, but gave me a present at the airport and said, here's a new tie for you. I didn't realise it was an official Rangers tie, and we were going to Celtic Park, so that wasn't a good move. You're listening to the Two Mics. We're at the London Stadium. It's West Ham United versus Everton later on today, but we're here for the show until 1 o'clock, and we're talking FA Cup, Mike.
We are indeed, because of course later on today, live on TalkSport, Tottenham against Chelsea, the first semi-final.
Yes.
And then tomorrow, Arsenal take on Manchester City. A lot of people have said, wouldn't it be great, particularly in this year with Arsene Wenger having so much trouble, if it was Arsenal-Tottenham in the final? Do you think that could happen?
Well, of course it could happen, because anything can happen, but I mean, that's dependent on Arsenal picking up some sort of form which has been sadly lacking in their play lately. And you have to say Manchester City have had a revival as much as Arsenal have been a bit down in the dumps. What is your prediction for today's game?
Well, for today's game, I've got a Chelsea not particularly on form. However, I think they might just edge it against Tottenham, because even though Tottenham have beaten them in the past, and Tottenham, you would say, are the form team, I still think Conte quite fancies the idea of getting himself a definitive piece of silverware in his first year. Because it may well be that Tottenham take the Premier League off them.
Well, it may be, but I think Chelsea's worries now are about not giving up the advantage they have at the top of the Premier League, the 4-point advantage they've got. I think Tottenham will beat Chelsea today, because I think of the two teams in current form, Tottenham are electric. I mean, they really are. And Harry Kane's back now. I think they will take them. The other reason I think they'll take them is because if you look surely at the statistics and the laws of probability, Chelsea probably won't win a double. It doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't happen
and I still think Chelsea will hold their nerve and win the Premier League, but I don't think they'll win a double. So I'm going to say Chelsea still for the Premier League, Tottenham to beat Chelsea today and then go on to win the FA Cup.
Well, we shall see. But, this is only the fourth FA Cup semi-finals that featured the league's top two clubs at the time. Would you like me to tell you when the other times were?
Yeah, go on.
Well, of course, Chelsea, Tottenham today. Manchester United and Arsenal back in 1998, 99. And then you have to go all the way back to 1903, when Manchester City beat Sheffield Wednesday. 1894. When Aston Villa beat Sunderland. This is like one of those porky quizzes.
I was about to say, I'm amazed those two questions didn't appear in the FA Cup quiz that we had.
I'm surprised at that
because the way you always gerrymander the quiz is to ask me questions from the 19th century.
Yes, now I've got a few tweets I'd like to read out to you.
Please do.
We've got loads coming in. You can tweet us, of course, at the Two Mics. We are at the London Stadium. Will Lukaku, says BMW, continue his scoring run next season playing for Chelsea? That's his first question to you.
I'm not going to rise to provocation like that, because I don't rise to provocation like that. There's no indication to me whatsoever that Lukaku is going anywhere over the summer. Ronald Koeman's a very persuasive man.
We shall see. Stephen says, West Ham now doomed to relegation now that Porky has visited, who of course did play golf with Poulter, and the Porky jinx is striking again.
That's very harsh. No, I can't see West Ham aren't in any relegation trouble at all.
There's a lot of teams below them that are, aren't there?
A lot of teams below them are, but West Ham aren't. And I tell you what, it's no surprise really that they've had a stumble in their first season in a new stadium. Magnificent as it is, it's still a new environment for their players and for everybody else involved. For the groundsmen, for the backroom staff, for everybody here. They'll settle in now, and my prediction is that next season they will be one of those, just below sixth-place type contenders all the way through the season,
that may well
causing
be.
people problems and becoming an irritant.
And as I said earlier, possibly with a different manager. Sam says this, did Porky not have time to get changed this morning?
What?
Did Porky not have time to get changed this morning?
You see, these damn slurs, just because you keep your jacket on, because, you're...
I'm wearing a suit, as I always do.
But the reason you keep your jacket on is because you have, levels of blubber, which I don't, which you have to cover up with.
I keep my jacket on because I'm wearing a suit, and you wear the jacket with the trousers. Steve-O says there is a bearded Martian in the ground disguised as a plank.
If that's referring to me, that's very harsh.
I think it is. And
very unfair.
Mr. Chili Flakes, now here's a question you may be able to answer, because you may prefer to call this the Olympic Stadium. He says the Olympic Stadium is still called the Olympic Stadium. It's only West Ham United who call it London Stadium. Well, I can tell you that as we walked up the magnificent sort of walkway to get here, it is called the London Stadium.
It is indeed, but there are signs still around for the Olympic Stadium. But it doesn't matter. I mean, it's West Ham's ground.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they'll call it in years to come. They certainly won't call it the Bowling, because that's the one they came from. But they'll acquire a name for it. The Emirates is interesting, because naming rights as well are a big issue with new stadia. And there's a lot of clubs after naming rights at the moment. Spurs have got a new stadium coming up. Chelsea have got a new stadium coming up. And there's a big battle on to get those naming rights. The most successful one in history, I think, is the Emirates, because to a lot of young kids now, Emirates means a football stadium. It doesn't mean an airline.
Right.
And that is the most successful sort of, branding of a stadium. And if West Ham can get something like that, I'm sure they will.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, I'm afraid there's an awful lot of Spurs fans very, very unhappy at this particular moment in time.
Yeah.
Now that you've actually tipped them to beat Chelsea in the semi-final.
Well, I don't get that, you
Francis says, that's it. Porky's jinx Spurs. Cut the plank, keep his mouth shut. Sam says, for heaven's sake, Porky jinx is now on Spurs.
Yeah.
And Danny says, great. Porky's just gone and ruined Tottenham's chances today with his prediction.
I think Spurs will win because they're a team now playing without fear. Chelsea are a team playing with fear. Chelsea are frightened of losing their 4-point advantage, and you can see that in their play. They're nervous. They don't want to give anything away. It's almost like, they're sort of playing for a draw, so to speak, to try and creep over the line. Spurs are in the chase, and Spurs are up for the chase.
Now, what about,
and they've got a much more expansive and flowing mode of football at the moment.
But don't forget what happened to Spurs last season. Last season, Spurs were the only team that really could have derailed Leicester's chances of winning the Premier League.
It's true.
And they fell away in a horrible way.
It's true.
And it's around about this time of the season it started happening.
I think they'll have learned from that.
It might all be too much for them.
I think they'll have learned from that for last season. I really do.
OK, well, what about Arsenal-Manchester City, which is also live, but it's tomorrow on Talk Sport?
Well,
Arsenal in all sorts of trouble.
I don't think Arsenal are in all sorts of trouble. It's all relative, isn't it, to expectations of what you're actually doing.
Well, this could be the first season in many a year they haven't made the top four.
I totally agree. I think Manchester City will win because I think Manchester City have come back strongly from a bit of a lull. And I think with Arsenal, although they've still got some great players, I still think they're a bit confused about what they're trying to do or what they're aiming at and the pattern of play. I still say that to have Theo Walcott as the captain of your team one game and then 2 games later Theo's not even in the team, he's on the bench, is a bit of a mixed message coming from the manager, from Arsene Wenger.
Well, it's not the only mixed message, is it?
Well, it's not the only mixed message, but it's indicative of the fact there are mixed messages about.
That's what I mean. The main mixed message is Arsene Wenger leaving? Is he staying? Is Sanchez going to stay if Arsene Wenger doesn't stay?
Yes.
Is Ozil going to stay? I mean, there's all sorts of stuff going on.
Oh, yeah.
And what about this? You've been pretty hostile towards Pep Guardiola ever since he's arrived on these shores.
No, I haven't.
If he wins the FA Cup, will you say that's been a great season for him?
If you win a substantial trophy in your first season, and the FA Cup is a very substantial trophy, then you've made your mark in season 1, without a shadow of a doubt.
Okay, so
without a shadow of a doubt.
So you'd have to give him that at least.
Say?
You'd have to very much give him that then.
I'd have to give him that.
Because it could happen.
Yeah, I think one of the issues today in the Chelsea-Tottenham game is whether or not John Terry will play.
Yeah.
Now,
it doesn't look like it, according to some of the reports I've been reading.
No, some of the reports I've been reading say that the young lad Ake is going to get a place in the team over John Terry, and I suppose that now that John Terry has indicated that he's willing to leave Chelsea, the position's becoming more and more clear, isn't it?
Yes, exactly right.
And his future obviously isn't there.
And, maybe perhaps this is not the right time to give him the sort of tribute that he will no doubt get when he has his last game for Chelsea.
Yeah, sure.
They might prefer that to be the final if they're going to beat Tottenham, which I think they will, and they'll wait and do that.
I'm going slightly mad. I'm going slightly mad. It finally happened.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics. Loads going on, of course. Coming up a little bit later on, we'll have the 1 minute moan. There's been plenty to moan about while we've been away since Friday morning, of course. So we're going to catch up with what the latest is with Theresa May and with Jeremy Corbyn and all that sort of business. I've got a couple of more tweets for you. A lot of people really upset with your tipping, I have to say.
Oh, really?
Ryan says this: Porky, Spurs aren't winning the FA Cup because they do not know how to.
Oh, really?
And here's one from
Might be
D,
eating your words.
who says, if Koeman is so persuasive, Porky, then presumably you won't be surprised when he persuades everyone he can't turn down Barcelona.
He is not going
to... a story that won't go away.
By the way, I've been told by a language expert that my pronunciation of Barcelona as Barcelona
is wrong.
Yeah. It is Barcelona. Like B-A-S-S.
If you'd been...
that is the way they pronounce it.
If you'd ever been to the new camp, as I have,
yes,
you would know that the Barca hymn is Barca. That's what they sing. They
Barca.
don't go Barca. Barca.
That's
what they do.
Don't worry.
I was there, of course, for one of the El Clasicos, which is also this weekend, by the way.
It certainly is.
Here's one from Mark, who says, endorsing Spurs to win seems bad. Will the bookies now push them to outsiders at 8-1?
Why?
Because you've just jinxed them.
I don't know why you're going about this jinx, honestly. But the thing is, I'm so expansive in the issues that I comment on in life, the issues I cover, the issues I know about.
Yes.
But occasionally things are bound to occur which are contrary to the way I might see them.
Yeah.
It's
well,
as
I think
simple
what
as
we
that.
should do is try and get Ian Poulter on the phone next week and see what he makes of his form. Absolutely collapsing ever since he met you.
What I forgot to tell you was that round I had with him was at the James Bond golf course. You know that, don't you?
What, Stoke Poges?
Stoke Park.
Stoke Park.
Stoke Park.
Okay.
It was the one where Oddjob, got the hat and went whoosh.
Yes.
And the statue's head came
That's
off.
right, yeah. And what was your score around there?
I don't talk about it.
You didn't shoot 18 holes with him, did you?
No.
You didn't have enough balls in that little bag of yours.
Look, I don't talk about confidential things like that.
Okay.
I'm not one to boast.
Excellent. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics coming live from the London Stadium, of course, ahead of West Ham Everton this afternoon. Porky's here with me, looking resplendent and feeling confident about this afternoon's result.
Well, I mean, you have to. You don't like to speak ill of your hosts, and it is a magnificent stadium that we're doing the show from here today. But I do think Everton are in sparkling form. West Ham have been struggling. They haven't got any relegation worries, but I think Everton may be too much for them today.
Absolutely right. And, of course, big FA Cup weekend as well, as we've been talking about. We've got much more coming up in the next hour as well. We'll have a little 1 minute moan soon too.
Yeah,
we've got one ready.
Yeah. And we're going to be telling people, I've got one ready, we're telling people what we're doing for the rest of the weekend.
Yes, exactly.
Listen, what I wanted to ask you was, did we ever work during our long and distinguished careers in the print business, did we ever work with a lady called Joanna Coles?
Joanna Coles?
Right?
I don't believe so.
Well, she's going to be the subject of a new show which shows, how the high flyers in the media world get on.
Yeah.
This woman is such a superwoman, right? And there are superwomen and superwomen.
Right.
She actually... On the, the old treadmills machines that people do in gyms and all that, she does them in high heels.
Does she?
She does it in high heels, and she does it, she says, because most of the time I'm rushing around anyway. Why should I do it in high heels? It gives me the ability to walk very, very fast when I'm doing my job.
Right.
She also, this is the other thing which I think is absolutely amazing, she watches television at double speed.
What?
She says she hasn't got time, so if she's watching
what's going to happen to this woman, don't you? I mean, we're going to be reading about some kind of a nervous breakdown in a few years' time.
She says there's nothing wrong with watching your favourite programmes in half the time it takes normal people. You get the gist of it. She says people speed read all the time, so why can't you speed watch? I do, and I pick up everything that's there. She sets her treadmill to 1.8 miles an hour, and she has one at her desk so that she's on the treadmill while she's still working.
Who does she work for, this woman?
This woman is the content editor of Hearst, the Hearst Corporation, and every morning at 6 a.m. on the 43rd floor of Manhattan block she works at, you'll find her on a treadmill, but she's still sending out emails, taking calls while she's doing 1.8 miles an hour on a treadmill. Absolutely amazing.
Well, how much time does she spend in the bar, though? That would be the real test.
I don't think she spends any time in the bar at all. But he looks at other high flyers, and a lot of them are British. Harriet Green, the British former Chief Executive Officer of Thomas Cook, says there's a programme coming up. It's called Running in Heels.
Oh, yeah.
And it's all about the high flyers and how they do it.
Okay.
And this lady, Harriet Green, she says, I only need 3 or 4 hours a night. I rise at 5 a.m. and I'm working out with a personal trainer 3 times a week by 5:30.
Well, you say that, don't you? You only sleep 3 or 4 hours a night.
Yeah.
The trouble is you don't do much for the rest of the day, though. You don't actually do much running around, do you?
Well, I get things done. Elon Musk, the guy that you know, the billionaire head of Tesla and SpaceX, he is allegedly business's master multitasker.
What?
Okay.
Business's master multitasker.
Yes, absolutely.
That sounds very good.
It does, and he conducts business on his phone during meetings and emails while he checks invoices.
Yes.
When he's talking to somebody, he's always doing something else, but he says he can take it all in at the same time.
But don't you think, we were talking about this the other day, and about how people are so much more stressed out now. It's because we're always doing more than one thing at a time.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, there is never a point at which you're only doing one thing.
Sure.
Is there?
Well, I totally agree with that. But this guy, Elon Musk, like some people have got diaries, and they've got them like in half-hour blocks.
Yeah.
His diary is broken down into 5-minute slots throughout his 10-hour working day.
Yeah.
So he's never
I'll tell you what, he's going to have
more than 5 minutes.
He's going to have to spend a bit more than 5 minutes on his new cars because they've just recalled about 54,000 Teslas who are having dodgy brakes.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's another problem he's going to be faced with. But there we are. Anyway, we'll talk some more about that because we've got much, much more to get along with, including, of course, this. Now, that music can only mean one thing, of course. It is time for the 1 minute moan. And I think I'm right in saying the score is now 9-4, is it? 12-4, I'm told.
Yeah. I don't think it's 12-4. These figures get rigged every week.
No, they don't. They're very accurate. And so, in order for you to even have any chance of coming back towards me before the end of the season, you're going to have to try and win this one for sure.
Yes, okay.
Have you got a 1 minute moan ready?
I've got a 1 minute moan.
Would you like me to start the clock?
I think you should go first. I usually go first. That puts the pressure on me. So you go first, okay?
Okay, well, that's
fine. I'll count you down.
Okay, go on.
Are our boys behind the glass ready? Yes, they are. Right, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
We have now, of course, embarked on the next general election. People have been moaning ever since the other day when Theresa May announced it, because we've just got over the referendum that was a year ago. We just got over the last general election, which was 2 years ago. I saw, unfortunately, for the first time last night, the first campaign advertising from the Labour Party. It happened to be from the Labour Party, could have been from the Lib Dems, could have been from the Tories, but it was absolutely awful, right? It was this woman, blonde woman, standing in a classroom, surrounded by kids who looked terribly worried, telling all the kids that basically the Tories had killed off their education, saying things like, oh, Mum, miss, why haven't we got a library anymore? Oh, that's because the Tories shut it. You know, miss, why haven't we got any help to learn anything anymore? Oh, that's because the Tories haven't given you any money. You know, miss, why is this great big fireball coming towards me and going to kill me? Oh, it's because the Tories are going to kill you. I mean, it was just totally utterly ridiculous. I'm sure what we're going to now get is the Tories putting out just as many bad and useless adverts, and the Lib Dems are going to be doing just as many mad and useless adverts. And I really, frankly, I'm not looking forward to the next 6 or 7 weeks of being bombarded by all this complete and utter nonsense.
Yeah, right, okay.
There you go. See if you can beat that.
Well, that was a very political one, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
I don't want to, fill our millions of listeners' heads with political diatribe.
Don't you?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell everybody something that affects their lives. Okay, you want to count me down?
Okay, let's start the clock for Mr. Parry now, please.
Right, now then, what really gets my goat is, very shortly, Britain is heading for its first day in our history, in our illustrious history, when not a single ounce of electricity in this country will be provided by coal. It will not be provided by coal. It'll be provided by all sorts of other ways to get energy out of the air or the ground or whatever, but it won't include coal. In 2012, Britain had 17 coal-fired power stations, right? And that produced most of our electricity, most of our power. Guess what? They're all closing down. Do you know why they've been closed down? Because somebody in the EU told us we were producing too much acid rain. Acid rain, and there was a UK carbon tax imposed.
I don't think it's supposed to produce any acid rain.
I don't want acid rain, but I don't think it's our acid rain. I think it's the continent's acid rain. Now that we're coming out of
confused.
Excuse me, now that we're coming out of the UK, we should say we are no longer subject to the rules on alleged acid rain from Europe.
What are we coming
out of? We don't care about acid rain anymore because there isn't any acid rain. But the idea...
That's it, you're finished. Okay. You just said we're coming out of the UK. I think you're getting very confused there.
No, coming out of Europe. The UK's coming out of Europe. You should listen carefully.
I was listening.
Right.
Well, I don't think there's going to be any contest with that one because clearly... what?
It's gone to me. It's gone to me. Thank you very much indeed.
First of all, he said we're producing too much acid rain.
Yeah.
We're not producing any acid rain.
Yeah, we are.
Complete rubbish.
According to the Europeans, we are. And that's why they're closing down all our power stations.
Cobblers.
You know that a lot of our power stations now are fired by forests full of trees in Canada.
So when you say we're now producing all sorts of electricity... generally speaking, apart from the new forest, of course, which doesn't go anywhere.
That's right.
But, here we are. You're telling us now, so we're supposed to believe. I can't believe you've given him that, by the way. 12-5 now, then, is it? Is that what it is?
12-5.
12-5.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. There's some kind of Evertonian secret handshake going on now.
The chairman of the judging panel just came over and congratulated me and said that was a very relevant issue.
Well, absolute rubbish. But here's the thing, right? You claim that electricity is now being produced by all sorts of wacky and weird means.
Yeah.
What, do you mean like nuclear power? Do you mean
well, a bit of it's nuclear power, but not enough of it's nuclear power.
Do you mean like wind energy? By the way, did you also see over the course of the last couple of days stories come out from Denmark about the efficiency of wind turbines? You know how you were saying they don't work?
Yes.
They actually do work very well.
Well, they might work in Denmark, they don't work here.
Why don't they work here? The same wind.
They don't work here because we haven't got any wind. And the point is...
We haven't got any wind.
Listen.
Are you joking?
Listen, wind turbines don't work when the wind is too low because it doesn't turn the blades round. And it doesn't work when the wind's too high. When the wind is low and the wind is high, I just come down from the island sky. Because when the wind is too high, they go round too fast and they might break and come off. And can you imagine the size of those propellers spinning across the land, wiping out homes, houses, playgrounds? It's a nightmare scenario, and we've got to get rid of them.
Yeah, OK. I don't think there's any truth to any of that. Now, you might remember from Thursday night, Friday morning show that Lady Laura was tweeting us at the time saying that there was 4 kittens on the way, and she's now sent out a lovely picture saying, in fact, all 3 kittens are still doing amazingly well. I think one of them may well have gone the way of all flesh. But
that's very sad.
I'm sure MG will cheer Mike Parry up with the news, because you're a big fan of cats, aren't you?
I'm a very big fan of domestic animals. I'm a big fan of all wildlife, but I'm not a fan of cats. I think cats are quite evil. And in fact, funnily enough, I've got notice this morning that a mad cat has once again encroached upon my roof garden.
A mad cat?
Yeah.
How do you mean?
Well, somebody in the neighbourhood somewhere, has got a mad cat. Which
when you say mad, I mean define a mad cat.
Well, any cat that's roaming around a penthouse is a mad cat, isn't it? Because cats are supposed to roam around on the floor, and go around catching mice and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
I haven't got any mice.
I had a cat in New York, right, which only ever lived in an apartment. It never went outside.
Yeah, I know, but I mean,
what's wrong with that?
Well, that's an internal cat. So
internal cat.
Yeah, if it never went outside, what was the cat doing in my? Cat was spotted in my penthouse roof garden, and it's something I'm going to have to take up with the authorities.
Maybe it's time for you to get the tasers out again.
What?
Maybe it's time for you to get the tasers out
again. Well, I wouldn't put it past them, honestly. Something's got to be done to stop that happening.
Right.
Well, I suppose you're thinking I bet he's sinking, or he wouldn't get in touch with me. Though I ain't begging or losing my head, I sure do want you to know that you're wearing well. There ain't a lady in the land so fine, oh my.
It's a slightly disturbing image that I can't show you, but I can only describe to you. Mike Parry is outside our current television studio where we are recording this live from the London Stadium, apparently pretending to be Rod Stewart. It's quite frightening and really quite worrying. Mr. Parry, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to London Stadium.
Yes.
Why are you singing into a newspaper rolled up to look like a microphone when you actually have a microphone?
Well, because the microphone I was connected to talking to you, but the microphone I fashioned out of my newspaper was in fact my impersonation of Sir Rod.
Indeed.
And I
don't think you'd be too impressed. It's been described by our producer as more like Dad dancing.
Well, that's a bit harsh. I mean, the point is, I've been checking out Rod's lyrics on his top.
Oh, good.
6 songs.
Because normally when you sing the Rod Stewart song, you get the lyrics wrong.
Well, I get the lyrics wrong in quite a lot of songs. Which a lot of people.
Do you think I'm sexy?
But can you imagine when now Sir Rod has very kindly invited us to join him on his plane tomorrow to Glasgow.
Yeah, we mentioned that before.
Yeah, we mentioned that before.
Yeah.
So we're going to go from one glorious football ground here at the London Stadium to another one, which is Hampden Park.
Indeed.
Which I've been to before because I went to that great Zinedine Zidane final.
Yeah, I was at that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
How did we know that we were not in the same stadium together?
I don't know.
Maybe that was during that period when you weren't speaking to me.
Yeah, it could have been, because I was upset with your lifestyle behaviour.
Exactly, yes.
But anyway, the point is, I don't want to be sitting on Sir Rod's plane and all of a sudden one of his tracks comes on, and my favourite is Wear It Well.
Yes.
And then I'm singing
it's called
along.
You Wear It Well, actually.
And then I'm singing along, and all of a sudden my brain goes vacant.
Yeah.
And my mouth's moving up and down, but no words are coming out.
Well, let me give you a piece of advice.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think Rod's the kind of guy that would actually play his own music on his own plane.
Well,
however, if any of his music does come on at any point while we're with him, please don't try and sing along with it.
Yeah, well, okay.
I think that would be my best advice.
He might throw me off the plane.
There's always that
for
chance.
desecrating a great tune or a great song.
Well, I'll tell you what, when we're getting on the plane, if he hands you and I a parachute, we might have to be slightly worried.
You could
Maybe
well
that's
be
the real reason he's taking us up there.
You could well be right.
You know?
Now, I just want to say to you, the sun is starting to come out, okay?
Yes.
It's breaking over this magnificent stadium. In 3 hours' time, the teams will take to this the field here, take to this pitch, and it's going to be...
It looks in pretty good shape to me
It looks in great shape. It is a magnificent pitch, and it's going to be a fantastic spectacle because the enormity of this stadium is it gives it depth, you know what I mean? It gives it height.
Yes.
And you feel like you're wrapping yourself around a football match rather than looking at one, you know what I mean?
Exactly right. I was listening to Ray Houghton the other day on Talk
Yes.
Sport talking about the magnificence of the pitch down at St Mary's in Southampton.
Yes.
And in fact, looking at this, you can see why everybody now who used to play football in those dark days of sand and mud and snow and all of that, they must think, God, how good would we have been on this? Because he was saying that the players in those days actually learned how to chip the ball to each other because they couldn't pass it along the floor.
So who was this?
This was Ray Houghton.
Oh, Ray, yeah.
Because there was, at this time of the year, he said, at this time of the year, so much of the grass had disappeared. It was sand was put down, and you couldn't pass the ball along the ground.
You know, the worst one was always the baseball ground, Derby's ground, Derby County baseball ground, because it was built below a canal.
Yes.
I.e., there was a canal running down here, and then the baseball ground was over here, but it was at a lower level, so the water used to seep in from the canal.
Right.
And it made for fantastic historical pictures of people like Franny Lee, you know, who played for Derby County after he played for Manchester City, literally kicking the ball, and it goes 6 inches, and then kicking it again.
You never stopped him diving into the penalty area to get many, many penalties, did he? He was tremendous at that. Now, let's come back to this game today, because you know Slaven Bilic is possibly thinking about making a summer move for John Terry. John Terry, of course, we were talking about whether or not he's going to play for Chelsea this afternoon, whether he's going to play again for Chelsea in the rest of this season. But he's leaving at the end of the season. Could he play for West Ham, do you think?
Yeah, well, of course he could. It makes sense that he's going to go to another London team. Now, trying to think who last made that journey from Chelsea to West Ham. I mean, for instance...
I suppose you're thinking of Frank Lampard going the other way.
Frank Lampard went the other way, obviously. But, I mean, Jimmy Greaves, for instance, ended his career here at West Ham, didn't he, after he'd played for Spurs?
Yeah.
And so it's not unheard of for players in London clubs to come here. But the thing is, if John Terry came here, he would be such a stalwart, you know what I mean? Because of the legend leader and captain that he was at Chelsea. He'd just transfer it here.
You think he could do that at another club?
Well, he would instantly become an iconic figure here because of the history of what he's done. I mean, by the time he gets here, he'll have won 5 Premier League titles. A Champions League, God knows how many FA Cups, 3, 4, something like that, and League Cup. And so, yes, he would be. And
somebody has already tweeted me rather unkindly, vis-a-vis the Champions League, that if in fact Chelsea did win the FA Cup and he didn't play, he'd still be there in his full kit to go pick up the trophy.
I never criticised him for that. I thought that was great. I thought what he said to himself was, you only get one football career during your lifetime, and if at this moment, I can't be in the team, I'm going to put myself in the team. Yeah. And he deserves...
And he certainly got them there, didn't he?
And he deserved it. He deserved to be in all the pictures afterwards, and I would have done exactly the same thing. I mean, that trophy that we won recently, right, for our overnight broadcast of the US general election.
The award.
Yes. The award, okay.
It's not so much a trophy as an award.
Well, we are pictured with the trophy, aren't we? In fact, on our
Twitter?
On our Twitter account, that's right. What I'm saying is, had in fact you gone to pick that up on your own, I would have then photoshopped myself into the picture.
Would you?
See what I mean?
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't do that anyway.
It's the sort of dirty trick you would have done.
Well, no.
Now, listen, looking at this game again today, you're absolutely right. Mr. Koeman is talking so positively about Lukaku.
Well, he is, but
why would he want to go?
Well, it's not within his gift, is it? The point is that Lukaku has said many times that he wants to go and play Champions League football. Yes. And with the best will in the world, Everton, as good as they have been this year, they haven't really been able to get above 5th. And they might go 5th again today, but it'll only be for a short period of time until the others catch up.
Sure, but I think everybody accepts that Lukaku was discarded by Chelsea. Well, not discarded, but they let him go to Everton for 28 million. And since he arrived at Everton, certainly under the control of Mr. Koeman, Lukaku has become a much better player, okay? I mean, this is what Mr. Koeman says. Remember, Koeman was one of the great footballers of his generation. He says, I think Lukaku is improving. No, I won't do that. I'll just do it in
Irish,
English. He's not Irish. I think Lukaku is improving in the rest of his football. He's doing better, pressing and running in the channels. He's now a better striker for the team than he was last year. So that means the level of improvement that Lukaku has achieved during one season with Mr. Koeman can be doubled if he stays another.
Well, it could, but that's very much a bit of speculation. Let's leave speculation behind and let's talk facts and figures, because it's time to catch up with Eleanor Mills from the Sunday Times.
Excellent.
She is, of course, our favourite person at the Sunday Times. Eleanor, very good afternoon to you.
Oh, that's very sweet of you to say I'm your favourite person at the Sunday Times. Hello.
Well, we like you very much.
Absolutely.
Because we particularly like the Sunday Times magazine, of which you are, of course, in charge. And we understand that while all this mad election stuff is going on, which we'll get to in a moment, you've got a fantastic interview.
We have. We've got an interview with Debbie Harry of Blondie fame tomorrow, and she never speaks, so it's a real coup. And she's really surprising. She talks about exhibitionism, how if she was performing now a lot, she'd take her, if she was young now, she'd take her kit off on stage. About sex in her 70s, about how hardcore it was being a sex symbol, that she decided that she would that she took all the mirrors down in her house. She couldn't bear to look at herself for a while because she'd become such an enormous star. It was so it's a really interesting interview.
Oh, she's a beautiful woman. And I tell you what, Eleanor, when Mr. Graham and I worked in New York in the 80s and early 90s, we used to see her visiting her boyfriend in that hospital in Midtown Manhattan. He had,
that's a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, he had some terrible disease.
He had a terrible sort of skin disease.
Skin disease. He was the
Kind
guitar
of
player in the band.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and we used to see her often going in there, and she literally put her career on hold for about a couple of years to help him over it and all that kind of stuff. She's an absolutely fascinating woman.
Yeah, indeed.
Really amazing woman and amazingly down to earth. Really interesting about the search for her real mother, who she never really knew, and she spent a long time trying to kind of track her down.
Yeah.
She talked to us about that a lot. But it's just amazing to see kind of such a kind of real proper icon in the flesh speaking.
Yes,
we've got a fantastic photo shoot, and that's our cover. We're really pleased with it.
Tremendous, and she's still performing, of course, as well. And talking of performances, I was just talking earlier to Mr. Parry about how already I'm getting fed up with the level of propaganda which we're being forced to look at on television. I saw my first party political broadcast last night, and it was the Labour one about how the Tories are basically killing off all schools and cancelling libraries and all that sort of thing. And I suppose we can expect more of the same from every other party as well.
I have to say there's nothing more boring in the general election campaign than when you start getting lectured by the leaders of the parties and they sit there looking like butter melt in their mouth, saying all the things that they're going to do. And we know it's total lies. You remember Nick Clegg going, "We will not put up tuition fees. We're absolutely against it." All those students voted for him, and of course they did exactly that as soon as they came into power. So it's quite fun. You can do spot the lie bingo and kind of see how many future promises are going to get broken as they speak.
Well, I think, Ellen, over the years that you and I might have covered elections, it's become so showbiz, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Policies don't really matter anymore, do they? Because people are just looking at what their politicians are doing rather than what they're delivering.
Well, it's the politics of focus group. I mean, let's not forget that politics is show business for ugly people. And
yes,
so
it is.
Increasingly, that's the case. And it becomes so kind of micromanaged. It becomes exactly like those American TV dramas about politicians, doesn't it? And we all know the tricks now. So we know that they're saying the kind of 5 things that we all want to hear, what it's meant to be at the moment. Brexit, immigration, the economy, the NHS. Yeah. And every single time any of them open their mouths, you see them ticking off those 5 things.
Yes,
I mean, every time I get too fed up with it, I just put the thick of it on and start watching a few episodes and figure that that's actually much more interesting than the real thing.
The real world.
Exactly right.
But I think that something of the appeal of Trump or of Boris Johnson is a sense that they are breaking the thick of it rules. The thick of it has kind of, it's like the Wizard of Oz, they've whipped the curtain back. So we all know what the tricks are now. And actually those tricks don't really work anymore. We've all watched too much House of Cards, too much the thick of it. And so we want our politicians more unspun, more real. I mean, not that that's necessarily going to make it any better, but I do think there's a sense that the artifice of that kind of new Labour electioneering, the man standing there in front of his big kind of placard going, "Better Britain," it's always "Better Britain," doesn't really do it for us all anymore.
No, absolutely. Eleanor, while I've got you on, the question I must ask you, is Life in the Day, the feature that ends your colour magazine, is that the longest running feature in British newspapers? Because the Sunday Times colour magazine was the first one, wasn't it?
It was the very first one. Yeah, we did our 50th anniversary a couple of years ago, and Life in the Day has been there pretty well since the inception. And I remember Godfrey Smith, the first editor, telling me about it, and him going, he came up with it, and everyone was like, "Oh, is it going to work?" And then one of the guys on the magazine said, "Well, actually, did you know that before I came to work, I ate kedgeree for breakfast, and I jumped up and down and did 25 somersaults or whatever it was." And they were all absolutely agog, and they realised at that point that if the most boring sub on the magazine could interest them in his life in the day that they didn't know about, then it was probably going to work for people who were more interesting.
Absolutely.
And imagine you've been going for 50 years, you still haven't done Mike Parry. But I suspect that's never going to happen.
No, what's going on?
You might have to win a few more trophies.
Yeah, absolutely right. Eleanor, listen, thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Very kind of you to join us. Now, we've already had a couple of complaints about the 1 minute moan, right? Oh, yes. Emma has tweeted us, I think there's some gerrymandering going on with the 1 minute moan.
No.
However, it is the 2 mics at their best. And also Derek from Pencoed has been in charge.
Oh, sorry, the bog cleaner?
No, he's still Derek in Pencoed has been in touch to say also that he's worried that there's some kind of Evertonian, razzmatazz going on. There's some kind of, secret handshake stuff.
What would give him that sort of
Well, because you are an Evertonian, as is the producer, who's just awarded you for one of your worst ever 1 minute moans, the victory.
We were brought up properly.
Absolutely extraordinary.
We understand how life works,
Yeah, really.
So there is no gerrymandering going on. Anyway, the amount of gerrymandering that you get down to in the Porky quiz, if there was a rebalance of that, it wouldn't be a bad thing.
And here's a great one from Jude who says, I'm sure the feeling is mutual. Cats hate Mike Parry.
Really? Is that right? There's no evidence of that. You can't talk to cats, believe it or not.
Really?
Now, listen. What about the antics of old Tony Adams? Because he's now been in charge of his second game.
Oh, has he had the second game? Did he win?
It was 1-0 when I switched it off last night, but I'm not sure how it ended up. 2-0.
No, do you want me to check?
Yeah, I think we're going to check that one out. Because what I was most interested in, and most people are interested in, are the antics of Tony Adams on the touchline, which are jumping up and down.
Yeah.
But interestingly,
although before you take the mickey out of him too much, I should tell you that I've just been shown a picture of you doing your dad singing out on the balcony outside. So we may have to release that into the general.
Actually, that's pretty good.
Into the general arena.
I'm going to give permission for that to be circulated widely because I quite like that. That's very good indeed.
Okay.
Now, what I was going to say is about Tony Adams, right? And of course, it's
they lost 2-0.
They lost 2-0. I said they lost 2-0. They were 1-0 down. I couldn't bear the pain. I was Richard off.
So that's his second game in charge.
Yeah, that's right.
He only had 3 games. No, was it 6 games?
No, he got 6 games. But in the first 2 games, he's scored 0, conceded 5. So it isn't going that well.
And what he said after the first 3-0 defeat was that the defending was really good, apart from the 3 goals.
But he said before the game, he said he was going to teach the attackers how to defend.
Yeah.
Well, that one doesn't seem to be working too well. But
he's going to kick some backsides as well.
Yeah. I'm going to kick some backsides. And also, he said rather, prophetically, right? He said, I'm not going to be popular around here. Now, what he meant was he wasn't going to be popular. He wasn't going to be popular because he was going to be tough with these guys and get stuck in them.
Yeah.
Actually, you're not going to be very popular, Tony, because you've lost 2 games.
Well, he's very popular in Seville, where he went and lost 2-0. So,
exactly.
More pounds to the elbow. Now, El Clasico comes up in the weekend.
It certainly does.
Well.
Yeah.
And that's also live on TalkSport 2, I understand.
But listen, before we move on, this is one of my bugbears. There's a chap who writes a column in the Times called Giles Smith.
Yes.
And he's looked at the Tony Adams situation. Of course, he said it comes in the week when Gianfranco Zola was also shown the door at Birmingham. And he's been saying something that I've been saying for years, and you must give me credit for this.
Yeah.
I've always said great players don't necessarily make great managers.
You certainly have
in
said
fact,
that.
in most cases, they make poor managers.
Yeah.
And old Giles Smith is saying you should ban great footballers from ever becoming managers because all it does is destroy the reputations they built up when they were players.
I suppose you would say that, but there are the odd exception, aren't there? Like you were mentioning last time you were at Hampden Park was to watch that great Real Madrid against Bayer Leverkusen Champions League final.
That's right,
Zinedine Zidane scored that magnificent goal.
That's right.
Now, he's doing a pretty good job at Real Madrid, you'd have to say, wouldn't you?
I'd say he's doing a fantastic job, but there are certain clubs whose infrastructure is so good and historically you inherit such a great squad, same thing happened to Pep Guardiola, that you can't really go wrong. The test for Zinedine Zidane would be like the test for Pep Guardiola. Take him out of his comfort zone and give him a club in another country.
Well, put him in charge of Granada, maybe.
Put him in charge of Granada.
See how he does that. It's not Grenada, by the way. It's Granada.
Granada, that's right.
Keep saying that to you. Now, some interesting news for you, given the situation regarding Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Wayne Rooney.
Right.
I'm reading a headline here. It says, Rooney gives Dons early lead. This is the first Scottish Cup semi-final.
Yes.
We're going to the second one tomorrow.
We are.
Today it's Hibs against Aberdeen. And Aberdeen are 1-0 up thanks to Rooney.
Right.
It's not Wayne Rooney.
Of course it's not.
It's another guy who's called Adam Rooney.
Adam Rooney, yes,
relation.
I know. Yeah. Now, that's interesting because, of course, the heebie-jeebies are the current holders of the Scottish Cup.
You mean the Hibs?
Yes,
the Hibbies?
The heebie-jeebies.
Some people call them the Highbies.
I call them the heebie-jeebies.
They've never been called the heebie-jeebies.
Excuse me, they have in my language.
Sunshine on Leith.
Yes, and so, therefore, they had great ambitions of holding on to that trophy. The way it's going at the moment, that ain't going to be the case, is it?
No, exactly right. Now, you were saying earlier, of course, we were terribly touched and affected by the death of Ugo Ekiog.
Yes.
Some incredible pieces of journalism this morning in a lot of the papers, and we should really refer to some of those, shouldn't we? He's being honoured at football matches all the way across the weekend,
of course. Of course, tomorrow, Mike, we're going to Hampden, Celtic Rangers, and he played for Rangers.
He did play for Rangers,
so there will be I'm sure there will be a 1-minute tribute for him there.
Well, both Spurs and Chelsea will wear black armbands.
Yes.
That's a 5:15 kickoff, which is live, of course, right here on TalkSport.
Yes.
And Birmingham Aston Villa, which is Harry Redknapp's first game in charge of Birmingham. A minute's applause will be held before the kickoff. I quite like a minute's applause sometimes rather than a minute's
prefer the silence. I think the silence is more dignified. I think the applause covers a multiplicity of sins. I think it started, the applause, Mike, believe it or not, because some fans didn't pay homage to the 1-minute silence.
Well,
so
if you need, and if people are going to be stupid enough not to honour it, then the applause kind of gets around that, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. One thing I did want to say, and I think I mentioned it briefly, but only briefly when we were talking about it, was that I worked with Ugo Ekiog Ugo Ekiog at the FA when I was there in 94-5, he was a member of Terry Venable's squad, which was preparing them for the 96 European Championships. Right. And he was just a lovely boy, lovely presence to have in the squad. Some squad members don't give of themselves. Andy Cole was a member of that squad, and Andy's a very insular sort of guy. But Ugo Ekiog was a very outgoing sort of a man who was always trying to help everybody else.
He certainly seems to be a guy that everybody really has a good word to say.
The amazing thing is, I remember one time, when in the dressing room, and sitting next to him was Razor Ruddock, who was a member of that England squad. Stan Collymore was also actually a member of that England squad. But Razor, in the last 20 years, I mean, to say a man that just gave up looking after his body. Yeah. I think it's fair to. I'm sure Razor won't take offence when I say Razor got into a lot of partying and that kind of stuff, and certainly has enjoyed life himself in a way different to a professional footballer. Ugo Ekiog was exactly the opposite.
Yes.
Fittest man you could ever meet, fit as a fiddle.
Well, as many people pointed out, he didn't look any different. He hadn't aged at all.
Well,
in 20 years.
I spoke to Andy Townsend and his lovely wife Jackie yesterday. And Jackie said the last time she saw him, he looked better than he did when he was 25, because they've known him for years because of Andy's association with Aston Villa.
And a lot of people, of course, were retweeting. I'm just going to read this out because a lot of people would have seen it anyway. A lot of people were retweeting the last tweet that he actually sent out before tragically
about giving money to a homeless girl.
He says, I gave a homeless girl £10 last night in Dalston. She didn't ask or beg. A random impulsive act from me. I'm not going to lie. It felt good. Yeah. What a terrific sort of eulogy for himself, really.
Great guy. Very
this is TalkSport. We are the Two Mics. We're live from the London Stadium.
Fantastic.
Yeah, why is Pixie Lott here?
Well, I thought it was Lady Gaga.
What?
And so I'm rushing towards the window and I'm thinking, I've just seen Lady Gaga.
Yeah, look, she's coming this way.
She is coming this way.
You might better get out there and see if you can lure her in here because, it's a big weekend. We're going to see Rod Stewart tomorrow. Yeah. She might want to come with us.
Well, who knows?
Maybe a duet on the plane time.
She's wearing a West Ham shirt, so she's clearly an old established West Ham fan.
Look, she's seen you and she's turned the other way now.
She's going
the other way.
But she's doing a bit of singing, so I think she's rehearsing her pre-match song.
Do they have a pre-match song here at West Ham?
Well, I think they are today, because I think Pixie Lott is. Pixie Lott's very famous, isn't she?
She is very famous.
I mean, she's like the tops, isn't she? Like right up there, you know what I mean? All the young members of our production crew all nodding their heads and salivating at the mouth and all this kind of stuff, you know, because it's Pixie Lott.
Do salivate.
That's absolutely right.
Unless you're some kind of strange prehistoric creature.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's one from Phil. He says, it looks like a couple of low-grade Chaz and Dave impersonators. I think he's referring to that picture that we put out a little bit earlier on.
Oh, I see.
A bit harsh, isn't it?
I think it's a bit harsh as well.
Not very nice. And somebody also looking at the picture of you and Ian Poulter, suggesting that surely that's not Porky. Is it not the Welsh golfing legend Ian Woosnam?
No.
Have you ever been mistaken for Ian Woosnam before?
No, I haven't actually. I don't walk around wearing a green jacket either, which of course Woosie did.
That's because you haven't won the Masters.
Now, listen, I told Adrian that fascinating piece of information about the fact that Hull City have the shortest long-serving player in the Premier League, right? A lad called Eldin Jakupovic, 4 years, 9 months, 14 days. The longest serving is John Terry, 19 years, 8 months, 22 days. But you will not be surprised to know that second to him, although a few years behind, is West Ham's very own Mark Noble.
Yes, indeed, of course.
And Mark Noble has been not just a magnificent player and captain for West Ham, he's a huge ambassador for the club and did so much work in really helping the smooth transition of the club from the old bowling ground to the new one. Now, I have got a bit of a beef about this.
Have you?
Because I know Mark Noble's dad very well. His name is Mark Noble.
Is it?
Yeah, they've got the same name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Well, that's easy then, isn't it?
That's easy,
You don't have to worry.
And at the old ground, the bowling ground, there was a box there. And the box was owned by a consortium of people whose kids had played for West Ham.
Okay.
So Joe Cole's dad was there because they came from West Ham. Michael Carrick's people there. And so were
Mark Noble.
Mark Noble, Senior. And Mark Noble's a great guy. I always had a drink before the game and after the game.
Okay.
Now, amazingly, the move to the new stadium and all that, I've been waiting for the invitation to drop on the doormat for quite a long time.
Oh, yeah.
From my mate Mark.
From your mate Mark. Has it not been forthcoming?
About his new box here.
Well, maybe he hasn't got the new box sorted out yet.
Well, I mean, you see, that must be true.
Yeah.
Because the alternative view is that they don't want the Borkmeister in the new box.
That would be
at this magnificent stadium.
That would be unbelievable.
You see what I mean?
I can't imagine that's the case.
But Mark is also a great fan of our show, so he'll be listening to this. And what I would expect would happen in the next couple of days is the error will be corrected.
Yes.
The next time Everton get here. You see what I mean?
He's not expecting to be corrected in the next couple of hours.
Well, I'm already looked after, fortunately, thank you very much, for the game today, because obviously I have to be diplomatic about
of course.
where I...
I've got some news for you, an update from Scotland in the first semi-final cup game before the Old Firm one tomorrow.
Tell me.
Aberdeen have gone 2-0 up.
Aberdeen.
So it looks like, unless the heebie-jeebies, as you rather unfortunately called them, managed to get back into the game, it's going to be Aberdeen to face either Celtic or Rangers, the game that we're going to go and see tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. I think we've got to...
okay. Trying to sound a bit more excited.
No.
It's a cup final.
Indeed. All I'm thinking is that it looks like the heebie-jeebies are going to relinquish their hold on the Scottish Cup.
Stop calling them that. But Ryan Christie with the goal, by the way.
As we are guests of Sir Rod tomorrow,
not
only in the ground at Hampden, but in the transport facility going there, which happens to be a private jet, then we would have to... Sorry, what are you laughing at?
That's just the constant references.
Well, I just want to
don't jinx it, okay? What we don't want is to turn up at the airport to find that something wrong with the plane.
And being told, see that car, don't get out of it, just keep going north.
Keep driving.
Yeah, that's right, And
see the time, by the way.
And I think as we are guests, then I think we would have to say that maybe, we'll have to be rooting for Celtic tomorrow.
Okay, all right. Well, Pixie Lot's still singing.
I'm neutral, really.
Loads of great live sport coming up over the weekend on TalkSport 2. Saturday's exclusive national radio commentary is from right here at West Ham against Everton. That's a 3 o'clock kick-off this afternoon. Saturday's La Liga action is Espanyol against Atletico Madrid. That's a 7:45 kick-off. And then Sunday, it's El Clasico, Real Madrid against Barcelona. That's 7:45 as well. And don't forget, TalkSport 2 is dedicated shows devoted to European football, golf, racing, cricket, and more. Whatever and whoever you follow, listen to TalkSport 2. And I can tell you right now that Mike Parry has suddenly decided he's going to start following Pixie Lott, who is, of course, described as a West Ham superfan.
Yes.
She's been out there singing. She seems to have stopped singing for the moment, but you heard it firsthand. How was it?
It was absolutely fantastic. The noise is sensational. I mean, you've been to plenty of concerts in stadiums and all that.
Yeah.
And when there's a lot of people there screaming and shouting and all that, the actual sound of the artist the acoustics is dumbed down a bit. But I just heard her singing then, and she's utterly fantastic. She's a beautiful girl, by the way.
Yeah.
And she's, as you quite rightly say, she's an East End girl. She's got a West Ham shirt on. It says Pixie on the back of it, which I suppose it would because that's her name.
Yeah.
I thought it was Lady Gaga when I first came in, but of course that's because she's got a wig on.
Yes. Well, she certainly eclipsed the other famous West Ham fan, who was, of course, Katy Perry.
That's right.
When she was married to Russell Brand. I don't think she's been back since they split up.
Well, I think she was only associated with Russell Brand, a West Ham fan. I don't think in herself she was, but Pixie Lott certainly is, and she's doing a great job down there on the...
Yeah.
Well,
see if you can attract her attention, because Neil is at least one person who's tweeted in saying maybe Mike Parry could offer to do a duet with Pixie Lott.
Well, I wouldn't mind.
Do you know any of her songs?
It'd be fantastic. Well, she's had a load of hit songs.
Has she?
Load of hit songs.
Yeah, do you know any of them?
Too many to list, to be honest, but I mean, her albums are top-selling albums.
Yeah.
Her singles hit the top of the charts. She's now got a sort of black... sort of PVC Mac on over her shirt.
She's got very pink hair, hasn't she?
Well, she's got a wig on. She's got a sort of pink wig, I think.
Is that real hair?
Well, it might be. Anyway, she's going out to the middle now to practice her
with a bit of luck, there might be some more singing.
Might be a bit more singing coming up, and I have to say, she's got a booming voice.
Yeah, well,
I can hear that noise. She's been introduced.
Some more singing.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some more singing.
Well, let's see if you can pick up on it.
I think it's coming in just a second or two. And this indicates to me the fact that she's probably going to sing some great song before the start of the game.
Well, do you know how some people don't like that? They say that, football's football. We don't want there to be any razzmatazz. We don't want there to be any kind of, cheerleading. We don't need to be given things to wave and to have hand clapping machines or anything like that. No. We don't want to be instructed when to go ooh, But I mean, if you're going to have Pixie Lott singing at the start, isn't that a great thing?
Well, the more celebrity you get in football, the better. Now, let me tell you, in this magnificent stadium, it's got two huge screens at either end of the playing area, so they're behind each goal.
It's called the pitch.
Here she comes. Pixie's
pitch.
out there now. This is what she's going to sing. Listen.
Yeah, you can't really hear it as well
out there.
We can't hear it as well in here as you can out there.
I can hear it fabulously. So we've now got Pixie Lott singing live on TalkSport from the middle of the pitch.
I don't think we have to pay some kind of royalty for this, do you?
I think they probably would have to as well. But I mean,
I can tell you, actually, watching now, Mr. Mike Parry is completely mesmerised.
I am mesmerised.
He is completely and utterly in love. I think you're falling for it.
I tell you what, there's only about 100 people in this stadium at the moment because it doesn't open till 1 o'clock. Yeah. So I am, to all intents and purposes, enjoying a private concert with Pixie Lott, who was going through her routine, doing a bit of dancing on the pitch there.
I think in the professional world of entertainment, we call this the sound check, don't we?
It's a sound check, without a shadow of a doubt it is. And Pixie's got sort of tight light blue shorts on. She's got white pubs. She's got a West Ham shirt. And believe me, she's thrown a few shapes.
A bit now.
She's thrown a few shapes down there on the pitch. This is all getting very good indeed.
Yeah.
And then, as I say, it's all being portrayed on these 2 giant screens in this arena. Now, you say you can't hear much inside the studio.
We can hear it okay.
I'm outside.
We can hear it okay,
but there's a terrific bass beat. I mean, it's... you can hear the...
She's got a pair of giant sunglasses she seems to be putting on now.
That's right, yeah.
And the sun, by the way, has just come out. So if you're on your way down here from Liverpool, or even if you're coming in from central London or some other part of the world, you can now look forward to what I would say is going to be a lovely afternoon down here live at the London Stadium.
And you know, the only audience for this Pixie Lott concert, absolutely fantastically, is the security staff.
Yeah.
And I have to say how impressed I am, Mike, by the security staff at this
stadium.
Well,
they haven't thrown you out yet, and you're not sure you're supposed to be out there.
But actually, what they do is they walk around every row of seats in this giant stadium where there's nearly 60,000 seats, inspecting the ground, the seats. It's an incredibly thorough security operation, and better than any I've seen at any other club in the Premier League over the last couple of years. And I think that's because the way that this stadium works is a joint operation between West Ham United and the landlords of the stadium.
Sure.
So therefore, between them, they insist on the very highest standards, and security clearly is at the top of their list.
Absolutely right. Now, as far as the game taking place later on is concerned, Andy Carroll is a bit of an injury doubt, isn't he? We're not sure whether he is going to be playing.
Yes.
Are you expecting him to play? And if he does play, can Everton handle him? It would be my question.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know whether he's going to play or not, but I was told last night he probably isn't.
Right.
I don't know whether he'll be on the bench or whether he'll come on later on, try and give West Ham an option. But what I would say is that as Phil Jagielka is in such sparkling form, if he does play, I think Jags will be, on him like a shadow.
Yeah.
Now, that's when Jags is in his own penalty area.
Well, won't he be too desperately trying now to get his 4th goal in a row?
Exactly, I was going to say. But Jags might run free, get into the other penalty area, and notch another goal for us to make it 4 in succession. Oh, Pixie Lott looks fantastic, by the way. Utterly
I think we're going to have to get Porky some kind of a chaise lounge to relax on after this, because he's going to be worn out. Only 1/3 of your heart works,
Well, that's true. That's true. But, no, she looks magnificent. And I've just been told by somebody that I'm doing the young lady a disservice. She's not wearing a wig.
I said she's got beautiful pink hair.
It's her own natural hair, which has been dyed pink, but she looks fantastic, I have to say. That's I've never seen her, in person.
Have Everton
before.
got I suppose they've got Amanda Holden as their celebrity female fan.
Amanda Holden, I've seen Amanda at games at Wembley when we've been in a semi-final and a final, and Amanda has this habit of wearing an oversized Everton shirt as a sort of mini
dress,
and wears a black belt round the middle to make herself absolutely beguiling
I'm sure.
on match days.
Yes, I imagine they keep you well away from her as well.
I don't know why you're trying to make out that I'm some sort of odious presence in Everton. I sat right behind Amanda and we exchanged a few jokes last time.
Okay, all right, jolly good. Now I've got another update for you from Bonnie, Scotland.
Oh,
the heebie-jeebies have got a goal back. Grant Holt has got one back, so it's 2-1 to Aberdeen.
Excellent.
So the game is still afoot.
Great.
It may well be that the Highbees, or as you call them, the heebie-jeebies, will get through to the final and play either Celtic or Rangers, who coincidentally we should be watching tomorrow.
We certainly
Have you checked the weather, by the way, in Scotland? We don't know what to bring in terms of coats, Macs and that kind of thing.
I'm going to put on my best suit because I think you have to be, respectful to the company you're in. It's an incredible privilege to be invited to go with Sir Rod to a game like that. He is, of course, a superstar fan of Celtic and
I think
Scotland.
Everywhere he goes around the world, he insists on being able to watch the games.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
No matter what country he is.
I'm sure he does.
And if he's not able to watch it in that country, he gets a plane out so that he can watch it.
Well, I'm sure that's the case.
Yeah.
But the later information which you've supplied today about these stops at pubs on the way back to the airport is also quite an exciting.
That is quite an exciting prospect for you, isn't it? People have said that you sounded terribly pleased by that news.
Well, it means that he is, like me, a man of the people.
Yes.
In fact, he's probably a bit more removed from the people than I am, by dint of the fact that
he's worth about 300 million quid.
And he's one of the most famous men on earth.
Yeah.
And he's probably the greatest living English singer. In fact, he is
Scottish
the greatest living
perhaps.
English singer. Absolutely.
Well, anyway, we are looking
Sorry. I meant to say British singer.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
We have been the two mics at the London Stadium.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. The warm-up with the two mics on Talk Sport.
You blow a